You are carrying pain that doesn't even belong to you. Let that sink in. Some of the sadness you feel is not yours. Some of the fear that grips you is not yours. Even some of the exhaustion that haunts you every morning, it's not yours. It was handed to you, not as money, not as land, but as invisible baggage, the silences of your mother, the anger your father never showed, the survival fears of your grandparents, the shame of your ancestors. They live in your nervous system. They whisper in your thoughts. They shape your choices, your relationships, your dreams. And so here you are, tired before the day begins, restless even in moments of peace, carrying a weight you never asked for. This is the weight we inherit. For years, I thought I was simply broken. If I just worked harder, maybe I'd finally feel enough. If I gave more, maybe I'd finally be loved. If I kept sacrificing, maybe I'd finally find peace. But peace never came. Instead, my body broke down. My spirit dimmed. I gave and gave until I didn't recognize myself anymore. And then one day it hit me. I wasn't just living my story. I was living their stories. The daughter who silenced herself because her mother taught her, "Don't upset anyone." The son who never rested because his father's unspoken rule was, "Your worth is in your work." The grandchild who saved every penny, not because of joy, but because scarcity was carved into his family's DNA. It wasn't just me. It was echoes. Echoes of silence. Echoes of fear. Echoes of survival. And in honoring those echoes, I abandoned myself. I abandoned myself in boardrooms where my body screamed, "Rest," but my inherited guilt said, "Keep going." I abandoned myself in relationships where I swallowed my truth because my family had taught me that belonging mattered more than honesty. I abandoned myself in quiet moments where instead of listening to my heart, I obeyed the invisible script written by generations before me. This is the inheritance we don't talk about. Not money, not houses, but wounds, expectations, and survival codes passed down like family heirlooms. And I thought, this is just who I am. But it wasn't who I was, it was who I had been told to be. The moment of awakening rarely comes gently. For me, it came like a crack in the mask. I realized I wasn't living my life. I was reliving theirs, their fears, their unspoken rules, their survival. And the grief of that realization nearly broke me. Because if I kept carrying this weight, I would pass it on too. To my children, to my relationships, to everyone who touched my life. That thought terrified me. So I withdrew. Not to run away, but to finally listen. At first, solitude was unbearable. All the emotions I had buried came flooding back. The rage I was never allowed to show, the grief I never understood, the loneliness that hid behind my endless yes. It felt like drowning, but slowly, something shifted. Solitude became sanctuary. I began to ask, which of these fears are really mine? Which of these expectations truly belong to me? And which are ghosts I inherited? And that was the first taste of freedom. Here's the truth. Healing is not about blaming those who came before us. They did the best they could with what they had. They passed on their wounds because no one ever told them they could put them down. But healing means this. I refuse to carry what was never mine. I refuse to pass the wound forward, and so I began small, saying no without apology, resting without guilt, speaking truths that trembled on my tongue, setting boundaries not as walls but as sacred gates, protecting the new life that was beginning in me. Every no loosened a chain. Every act of rest returned air to my lungs. Every boundary became a declaration. This ends with me. The silence ends with me. The shame ends with me. The pattern ends with me. And with every step, I discovered something extraordinary. I wasn't just breaking chains. I was planting seeds, seeds of honesty, seeds of self-respect, seeds of freedom. The truth is, we inherit more than wounds. We inherit resilience too. The same blood that carried trauma carried survival. The same hearts that broke still kept beating. The same ancestors who suffered also endured, and endurance can become wisdom. The rebirth is not about rejecting the past, it's about transforming it, choosing to keep the resilience, choosing to release the pain. I can honor my parents, my grandparents, my ancestors, without being imprisoned by their wounds. I can build a life not on inherited silence, but on chosen truth. And maybe that is the greatest legacy I can leave. Not wealth, not perfection, not the illusion of strength, but freedom. The freedom to live unburdened, the freedom to breathe deeply, the freedom to rest without guilt, the freedom to love without fear. So now I ask you, whose weight are you carrying? Pause. Take a breath. Ask yourself gently, is this truly mine? If the answer is no, put it down. Because the most radical act of love you can give, to yourself, to your children, to every generation that comes after you, is this. Stop carrying the wounds that were never yours. Break the chain. Lay the weight down. Choose freedom. This is the rebirth. This is liberation. This is how the weight we inherit finally becomes the freedom we choose.